with everything that's going on at the moment, I wanted to do what may be a slightly self-indulgent video, but one that I hope will put some smiles on some faces. Something very positive, something that I hope will touch some people. But just before I do get into it all, we're in Clown World, Galaxy, and freaking Universe right at this present moment in history. So please, can somebody tell me why on earth Michael fucking McIntyre is on the front of this magazine? Tearing up the nation with his best bits. Cheering up the nation? Look at him! He's the fucking devil! Ah! Ah! Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. Look, British people know exactly what I'm going on about that intro, okay? Enough said. And yes, this is going to be self-indulgent, but it's a game that some people have asked me to discuss once I've finished, and I think it's a game I'd love to discuss anyway because, well, as you can gain from the title, I personally think this is one of the greatest games of all time. Never mind, you know, Game of the Year or anything like that. I think this is one of the greatest games that has ever been made. So with that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the character stuff, some of the story stuff, give my thoughts and feelings, obviously, and I will be going into spoilers because yesterday I finally finished my first playthrough of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, for Jedi Master members of my channel, the join button is just down there. I have posted the finale, the final part, up for you guys to watch. I'd recommend you watch that before you watch this video, because I will go into those spoiler elements of it. And of course, Final Fantasy VII, I think, has a huge place in a lot of people's hearts, because I think it was the RPG which changed everything in terms of how RPGs could be played. It just gave so much more depth and scope to the RPG genre, whereas at that time, and don't get me wrong, I think these are beautiful games. We had things like the Phantasy Star series, Shining Force series, things like that. That were a lot more basic, and then Final Fantasy VII comes along, blows everything out of the water. Now, sure, if you want to put in the comments, well, actually, my favourite Final Fantasy game is Final Fantasy VI. Whatever. That's personal preference, but I think Final Fantasy VII was a genre-defining game. It was an RPG-defining game, and allowed this wonderful development of RPGs that we saw. And I think the next evolutionary step came in the form of Morrowind a few years later, 5 or so years later, when Bethesda put that out, and suddenly we were even dispersed with linear gameplay. And you could go in anywhere, explore anything, and do what you wanted, and return to the main story at any time. But Final Fantasy VII, for me, I distinctly remember back in 1997 what I was doing. I was working at a company, and my friend had got the game, and he said to me, "You've got a PlayStation, haven't you?" I was like, yeah, I got a PlayStation. Me and my buddy had gone halves. We bought our first PlayStation. It was amazing for me to own one. I wasn't rich. I was poor. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and to be able to have funneled some money together with my mate to go halves on this PlayStation was a huge thing. And he said, I've got this copy of Final Fantasy VII, do you want to borrow it? So I was like, sure. And so I borrowed his copy of Final Fantasy VII, and my life was forever changed. It was just, I couldn't believe, number one, the length, ladies, of the game. There was so much to do. I clocked in over the 100 hours of play, and I think when you got to the timer got to 100 hours, it stopped. It stopped at like 99, 59, or maybe even 100, and that was it. So I don't know how many more hours up and above that. I tried to discover every secret. I fought every weapon, Ruby weapon. I worked out how to defeat Ruby weapon. You know, it wasn't like looking at a guide or anything. It was like, right, when I go into battle, these two people get killed on either side of me. So what if I went to battle with them dead? If I went to battle with them dead and then resurrected them, yada, yada. You know, so it was all trial and error working stuff out. But I would literally go to work, go home, play Final Fantasy VII until I had to sleep, go to sleep, wake up, go to work, rinse and repeat for a long time. And my God, just the characters: Cloud, Tifa, Barret, Aerith. Then we had Vincent, Yuffie, Red 13, Kate Sith. These characters that came along, they became almost friends of yours. You know, they at the time felt so well-rounded. But here we are in 2020, and the Final Fantasy VII universe has been fleshed out. We've had Advent Children, we've had numerous spin-off games, Dirge of Cerberus, we've had Crisis Core, which dealt with Zack's side of things. You know, there's been a lot of different, as well as more, but there's been a lot of development put into expanding this universe. But here we are, current day, and at last, this remake, which looked to be a bit of a disaster just a few years ago. It wasn't working out at the company that they found it off to. They weren't happy. If you look at the initial showing of what the game was going to look like compared to the finished product once Square Enix took it back in-house, when they weren't happy with what they saw, the level of polish, the level of detail, everything has changed dramatically and looks so much better. And we have voice acting, and we have depth of characters, so characters which you didn't fully connect with, but you were like, oh, like Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, for example. Suddenly, these characters got a lot of screen time. They got a lot of development. And when you knew things like the falling of Plate 7, Sector 7's plate coming down, and you knew that Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge perished in the original game, once that dawned on you that it was going to happen in this game, suddenly things got a lot different in terms of the connection to the character. So let's deal first of all with the main characters. Cloud, Barret, Tifa, Aerith. They are the core of this game in terms of the main characters. Cloud, I really enjoyed the way that Cloud was portrayed. He's a soldier, ex-soldier. He's serious. He takes everything seriously. He doesn't let his guard down because he's a former soldier. Or at least he thinks he is anyway. Wink, wink. We all know about this. But I thought he was portrayed very well indeed, because the moments where Cloud was allowed to open up a little bit, the moments where Cloud had certain interactions which melted his character somewhat, melted his ice-cold exterior, made it all the better. And I'll give 3 examples of this. The first example of this is early doors with Tifa. Oh, Tifa. Where he is told by Marl, you better look after her. She needs a friend. She needs a good friend. She needs somebody to be there for her. And where Tifa is talking to Cloud in his rented room, and Cloud says, look, if there's anything that you want to tell me, if you want to open up, talk to me. And Tifa's taken aback by that because she thinks, obviously Cloud is a changed person from his experiences in Soldier. And it's just this wonderful moment where Cloud shows a bit more humanity and where Tifa realizes that the guy who she might have thought was gone is still in there. And she does mention that his exterior is, not all as steel and cold as he may portray. And he says, is that a bad thing? And she's like, no. The second example I want to give is with Aerith, where Aerith is always she starts off wanting some high 10s, and Cloud's just like, and they go through various puzzles, and she's like, high 5, and he's just like, whatever. And then you go through all the little puzzles, and you're just about to come out from the underground, and it's Cloud that puts his hand up for a high 5, and Aerith doesn't bother because she thinks he's not interested. And then she's suddenly like, wait, were you? And he's like, nothing, and moves on. And it was just a very small little moment which gave Cloud that little bit of warmth and humanity that under all of this soldier exterior, he was just the regular guy that he used to be. So that one really got me. And then the final one, of course, is the honeybee. The honeybee segment. I thought the honeybee segment in this game was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. With Andrea, the head of the honeybee. And I just thought it was dealt with in such a very clever and a very non-kind of pushy way. It was just fun, going into the honeybee, doing the dance with Andrea, showing his moves off, you playing the dance mini game, which I thoroughly enjoyed, by the way. And then they dressing him up, and then Andrea has that beautiful little speech at the end of it all about don't fear being who you are. It's an expression that gender has no construct here, and it was just a beautiful, non-pushy, non-preachy message of acceptance that can be taken by anybody. And the fact that Cloud was so open and willing with it as well, again, gave his character that level of humanity, even if, he didn't really want to go out into the public dressed up as he was, but had to go save Tifa. So there were 3 really wonderful moments with Cloud just letting his guard down, letting people see much more of his humanity. Tifa was exceptional in this game, I thought. Tifa's role, I think, is so important because she's clearly, I don't know if it's in love with Cloud, but she's clearly enamored with Cloud. She has a great deal of affection for him. She always has, by the looks of it. And she really wants it reciprocated, but at the same time, I think there's a fear in her that if it is reciprocated, what happens? Will it ruin everything? And the voice actress of Tifa was phenomenal. I thought that her voice was just that perfect tone. It was slightly deeper, not in a non-feminine way, but it was just slightly deeper than in as much as when you compared it to Aerith. And it had a little bit more maturity about her as well. A little bit more life lived. And it was a voice that melts your heart. And a character that melts your heart. And you see Tifa at the beginning of the game desperately trying to reconcile her desire to do good with the consequences of those actions, because those actions invariably ended with people getting hurt. And with Avalanche escalating their activities with the destruction of the reactors, you could tell that she was having a terrible time trying to reconcile all of that. Cloud comes along. Suddenly she's got an external but friendly face to call upon. And not only that, it reawakens those, I would say, romantic notions inside of her. And it kind of gives her the idea that maybe there's a way out of all of this. Maybe there's a way out of this Avalanche world. Even though she believes in what they're trying to do, you kind of always get the idea that Tifa was skirting on the outside of it all, and was looking for some sort of exit from this situation. And I grew so attached to the Tifa character because it was so well done. She was strong. She was sexy. She was intelligent. She had depth. All the characters had great depth to them. Now that they could be voice acted, and you could really begin to empathize with them more and more. And yeah, it just made me, because Tifa has always been number one girl for me since 1997. And now we're in a situation where it's just like, oh my God, yeah, this is my childhood friend who I've grown up with. And I could see how Cloud could easily fall in love with this character, and how the two of them could fall in love with each other. And that's to be explored at a later time. We saw certain elements of it. There was one particular moment where I started shouting at the screen when they were outside of Aerith's house, and they were just in the flower patch together talking, and Tifa was pouring her heart out to Cloud, and then she goes to Cloud and sort of curls up, and he's just got his arms at the side, and I'm just like there saying, hold her, dude, hold her. And then he does. He wraps his arms around her. And it was just like, oh. I know. Soppy. Yes. Whatever. But it was just one of those perfect moments where you're just like, just hold her, dude. Hold her. And then it had a little twist at the end, because she's like, you're hurting me, because he's holding her too tight and stuff. But yeah, it's just a great moment between those two characters. And there were other elements. Little other elements of their budding romance as well, if you wanted to go down that avenue. Certain choices that you can make, for instance, when they're both unconscious on the ground, Tifa and Aerith, you can make a decision which character you go to first. And I think that decision is obviously based off which character you personally lean to more. So with me, it's Tifa, but you could go to the Aerith character. So, Barret, next up. I love Barret. Barret's one of these characters that starts off in a certain position and grows and changes and develops. He's very standoffish when it comes to Cloud to begin with. Cloud's a hired hand, nothing more. He likes to position himself as a hired hand and nothing more. So you get what you pay for. And he's also totally committed to the cause, Avalanche and the cause. And he has this very no-nonsense, I'm not going to let you close, I'm not going to let you in type of attitude. Uber defensive with Marlene. And then by the end of the game, he's compassionate. He cares about Cloud. He's let him in completely. He trusts him. He's part of the team. He's part of Avalanche as far as he's concerned, whether Cloud likes it or not. We have this incredible bond that he has with Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge, as well as Marlene, obviously, which is his daughter. But this incredible bond with Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge. And so when the Sector 7 plate does come tumbling down, and that moment where he's just punching the debris, crying out their names, believing them all to be dead. It's heartbreaking. And for a moment, he also thinks Marlene's gone as well. But thankfully, Marlene has been saved because of Aerith and her deal that she made with the Turks. But, you know, there's that moment with Aerith where she says, look, they've returned to the Earth. And he has to try and take on this acceptance that, again, his actions have consequences. All of this, what is terrorism at the end of the day, regardless of what ideology they may have, it is terrorism. With the destruction of these reactors, you know, people really... And the beautiful thing about this game is it doesn't play a singular political aspect either. It doesn't say, hey, Avalanche are trying to save the world, they're the good guys. They are challenged. And they're challenged within. That people rely on the reactors. They rely on the reactors for electricity, for warmth, etc., you know, and to deprive people of these purely because of your own ideology, is that your decision to make? And I love it when games do this. I love it when TV shows do this. This is why Star Trek The Next Generation was so good, because it would often show both sides of the coin. It wouldn't have a singular political ideology. If it brought a political ideology in, it would challenge it with the other side, invariably. And so having Avalanche's actions challenged, to me, was a fantastic thing, was a necessary thing, if you ask me. Because it made sure that we, as the audience, understood that things weren't as black and white as they should be. So I love that aspect, and again, it actually made Barret think. And then Aerith. And Aerith was, to me, the character that needs the most work done to her. I felt very bonded with Tifa. I felt very bonded with Barret and Biggs and Wedge and Jesse. Aerith was the character that didn't confuse me, but you could tell that the way that they were playing Aerith was all her defenses were up, but she was very friendly. So her exterior was very friendly, but all of the defenses were up. She was exceptionally guarded. And so we didn't really get into who Aerith really is as a character until towards the end, where we discover she's the Ancient, and she actually admits to everyone that she's an Ancient, or part Ancient, because of whatnot. And so there was a slight standoffish element with Aerith, even though we had some great adventures with her, and we had multiple adventures with Aerith. And one of the great things about the two female characters, of course, is when you go to save Tifa, and Tifa meets Aerith for the first time. Tifa jealous. Tifa is jealous, and she doesn't know what to make of Aerith. She is really standoffish to start with, and then at by the end, they're buds, they're friends, and that's all good. But again, it's a normal, natural reaction that was put in there. And this is why these characters all came across as so believable. Not, this fantasy world, this fantasy genre, this fantasy RPG, and yet these characters came across as so relevant, and you could absolutely have a huge amount of empathy and believability in who they were. And that just made their adventure even more poignant, because you were desperate for them to succeed, and you were caring about them. You know what fate has in store for some of them. And the game wasn't shy in Cloud's little flash forwards that he has, where we see the materia bouncing and we see Aerith knelt down in the prayer position, and we know exactly what happens then. And look, the game's 23 years old, so that's where Sephiroth kills her. But the other aspect, now I'm going to move into the story side of it, because this is important. This is a remake of Final Fantasy VII. This isn't a carbon copy. This is a remake. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them taking artistic license. I'm fine with them using beats of the original story. But I'm absolutely fine with them playing fast and loose with it, in as much as certain elements of the game were fleshed out considerably compared to the regular version of the game. And other elements were changed. The fate of some of the characters changed. At the end, we saw Biggs was alive and had survived. Wedge was alive. Does that mean Jessie is also alive? Or did Jessie perish? She was a lot higher up than Biggs was. We saw with the fact that they went into the Singularity and challenged Destiny, and those ghosts actually representing Destiny, I thoroughly enjoyed that, because they weren't on your side and they weren't against you. They were simply trying to maintain the course that Destiny had set for these characters. And that's why there would be instances where they would be seemingly opposed to allowing the characters through, whether at other times they would be actively helping them. For instance, when one of the ghosts of Destiny, or whatever that you want to call them, spirits of Destiny, Whispers, I think they call them, ended up taking Sephiroth's sword for Barret. And then Barret is actually fine, even though it looks like he was killed by Sephiroth. And so we get this moment at the end where you enter the Singularity, where things look normal to start with, then they all start breaking apart, because this is a different place. Mirror universe, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't know quite what to call it. But the fact that they take on Sephiroth and defeat Sephiroth within there, or seemingly, although, ultimately they haven't, but they fought away Sephiroth, changed the course of Destiny, and we see that Zack lived. Because we see the ending of Crisis Core, but this time he actually survives it and takes Cloud and they go away. However, they appear to be in a different phase of the universe, or a different side of the universe, because they walk literally straight through the other characters. So there is a little bit of weirdness going on with the Singularity and the course changed by Destiny, and what's reality and what isn't reality, etc. So there is that side of things, and I think that's what caused a bit of kerfuffle for a few people. But I thought that the story was so good, I thought that the game was so good, why not trust their judgment? Why not trust their judgment in what's going to happen? Because they did sort of hammer in you know that you can't really change the course of Destiny too much. So yes, they might be able to shift a few things around, but will Destiny try and course correct? And then we will actually end up with the way that things were meant to be. That's kind of where I'm leading to at the moment. But the lovely little side quests that the game had, the story that we all know and love from Midgar, the other characters, all the way from the president to his son Rufus to the Turks, etc., Hojo, all that kind of stuff. Every character felt real. They felt like a true fleshed out character that you could either boo or cheer or love or hate. And I'm just so upset that we're gonna have to wait, I don't know how long, 3 years, 4 years, I don't know, until the second part of this, because I just wanted more. I just wanted more of this world. I wanted more of this story. It's now at a point where we're just leaving Midgar, and we actually get to go to the outside world. And I think it's probably one of the most exciting points of the game is when you leave Midgar and you go into the outside world and start to explore for the first time. We still haven't come across Yuffie. We still haven't come across Vincent, who were both optional characters in the original game. You didn't have to get them, you know. They were optional characters. We had a cameo of Kate Sith when the plate fell, but that was it. So there's still Kate Sith to be injected into the game as well. Also, we couldn't play with Red 13. They were an AI character. So we kind of only met Red 13 by the end of the game, but he did have a collar on, and there was definitely materia in that collar that he had on. So I'm reckoning that when the next game comes around, Red 13 is going to be playable. All these characters are going to be playable. But for this version of the game, he wasn't. That was, I think, my only slight disappointment. And I think disappointment might be too strong a word, but I really wanted to play Red 13. I think I might have said Red 7 at one point. Red 13. I really wanted to play that character. But, you know, I'll take what I got. I'll take what I got. But now, even though I finished the game, it's unlocked the hard difficulty. It's unlocked chapter select. So I can go back to different chapters. I've already jumped into one chapter and grabbed a couple of weapons, which I missed first time. I can do the VR combat program, which I never completed. I could take Aerith to other places that she hasn't even had the opportunity to do the combat. So it could do that. Seek out the quest that I never found and discovered. I thought I had, but it said I haven't completed all the quests, so there's still stuff out there. It looked beautiful. It was acted beautifully. The story was incredible. I personally like the tweak and the changes because I'm trusting where they're going. They haven't given me a reason not to trust them. With the way that the game developed, with the ways that the character developed, they've not given me any reason to doubt them. And so when you don't give me a reason to doubt you, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to put my faith in you. And I just cannot wait until the next part. I truly cannot. This is definitely, without doubt, one of the greatest gaming experiences I've ever had. I want to play more of it. I will be playing more of it. I will be going into the difficulty modes. I will be going into the chapter selects. I might just play it all again on hard difficulty. I'm not done with this universe. I'm not done with this world. I'm not done with these characters. And I wait with bated breath for news about part 2. But just outstanding. That's all I can say. Just absolutely outstanding. So there we go, folks. There's my thoughts, feelings, and gushes of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up. And also subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media and YouTube for live streaming. Links in the description box down below. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care. Bye for now.